I'd say the average film is probably raising about 25 grand, something like that.
So really low, micro budgets.
Micro budgets. It's a portion of their budget. You know,
it's a portion.
It's a portion of their budget. I think for filmmakers, film is a unique case on Kickstarter because filmmakers need so much money. And you know, when I talk to a lot of filmmakers, and the way I encourage them to think about it is that you have your equity money, maybe you have your grant money if you're a doc, you have your friends and family money, and Kickstarter is your public money. You know, it's a chance to put your idea up, share it to the world, immediately raises awareness for what you're doing. Suddenly everyone knows about this film that you're making, even if it's 2 years away from being done. And you're raising money from the public. And so you get 25 grand, which is awesome, which is important.
If it's a quarter of your budget, still.
But you also get probably a couple thousand people who now really care about your work. True. And who are getting emails from you as you talk about, here's what happened on the set today, or here's the latest disaster, the latest success. And so you are building a community, you're making people aware of your work, and you're raising money all at the same time. And my background, I was a music critic before this, and I've always cared a lot about film, and I've written about film some in the past, but I didn't understand the business that well. And what I'd always imagined was that someone like Jim Jarmusch would spend his time in a castle in Belarus just looking at like lenses for 16 hours a day, and that's what it was to be a filmmaker. And then once we started doing this, I realized, no, he's actually taking out really rich people for dinner, trying to convince them to write him a check. And so it's much less fun. It's much less fun than I imagined.
You'd rather have him staring at lenses.
Staring at lenses is awesome. It's awesome. We should all wish for such a fate. But the thing is that, so you're putting that same energy into fundraising, but when you're taking out rich oil tycoons for dinner, all that energy is being spent in private, and you're wiping the slime off of yourself afterwards. Apologies to any rich oil tycoons in the room.
There we go.
But you're still expending that energy to try to build momentum and try to build some funding around your work. But it's so private, no one sees it. And so in Kickstarter, you are spending a lot of energy. It's a lot of work to do one of these things, but you're doing it in public.
Well, so what's interesting is you have to really be creative about what is it you have to offer, because I mean, I just think that you obviously have to put a lot of time into it if you're going to offer $500 for a set visit, or there's only so many of those you can do, right. And I will sign you a copy of the script for
And it's up to people to do whatever they want. I mean, we just had our biggest film project ever ended 3 weeks ago, and it was Dan Harmon, Charlie Kaufman, 45-minute stop-motion animated film.
Wow.
So something that clearly has no home in the marketplace. I don't think many theaters will book a 45-minute film, but it's also something that clearly fans would want. And so they put it up looking for $200,000. They ended up raising a little over $400,000. And what they offered people was like $20 that you could get to download it, maybe 30 or 40 you get a DVD, Blu-rays after that. But higher up,
does that mean they're going to release it themselves, or you don't know?
I don't know. It's up to them. They're free to do whatever they want. But one of the things was for $5,000 that Dan Harmon would write a script about you. So you had one of those available, and that went within like 10 minutes of it being live.
I can't. So I'm still processing Dan Harmon and Charlie Kaufman together.
Yeah,
they're both kind of wacky, but in completely different ways.
It's perfect for the internet. It's perfect for the internet.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an amazing project, and this is what we love: is that this is something that is largely non-commercial, that really has a hard time existing any other way. But there's clearly a lot of fan support for it.
How do you? It's a stupid question. How do you raise more than the money if you're only offering?
Because people can keep giving you money, and they do. I mean, the largest project on Kickstarter raised $10 million, and its goal was $100,000.
What was that?
That was a watch. That was a watch. There's also
to make a watch. Someone wanted money to make a watch.
To make a watch that works with your iPhone. So there's a few product things on Kickstarter as well. At this point, there have been 16 projects that have raised over $1 million, and all of them in the past 6 months. Most of them are video game related things. There's one music project that raised over $1 million. There have been no film projects yet, but I feel certain that will happen within the next few months.
Really? So is the Charlie Kaufman movie the most expensive, or I'd say the largest?
It's the largest
money
so
that's
far.
raised, so $400,000.
But there have been, I think it's 65 films have raised over 6 figures. And this year alone, there's already been a dozen films that have opened in theaters. Ai Weiwei, Never Sorry was one that did pretty well. There's a big one opening in over 100 screens in October called Brooklyn Castle, a documentary about, it's like hoop dreams for chess. It's wonderful. 2 of my best friends made that, so that was exciting. But that's opening wide, and there's more and more things in theaters. There have been 2 films nominated for Oscars so far. that were funded on Kickstarter.
Which ones were those?
It's a film called Some Come Up and Incident in New Baghdad. It's two docs.
Docs, right, exactly. Yeah, I wonder about, I mean, to me, it's a very exciting platform because it does what you set out to do, which is it really opens the door for people, particularly filmmakers, at a time when the studios are making fewer and fewer movies. Everyone's struggling to figure out how to get their movies financed. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, you know, it's been pointed out to me by my son, who's aspiring filmmaker and makes short films, that there's nowhere, once you've made your project, that there's kind of a gap in the chain, because Kickstarter doesn't tell you how to get your film out there.
Right.
So that, I don't know if there is someone out there who would like to start this company, but we could use somebody like a crowd-funded distribution model.
Yeah, there are people trying to figure that out. I mean, we're not smart enough to figure those pieces out. I mean, what we did was we created this one thin layer that does this one thing, which is like get you money so you can make things. And from there's going to be a whole ecosystem that develops around it, and that's happening. That's
right.
happening. I mean, it's, you know, eBay created PayPal, you know, and I think that there are things that will come out of Kickstarter that will provide further services. We have no interest in doing any of those things. I mean, we want to stay small. We want to do this one thing and do it really, really well, and that's challenging enough.
What do you mean want to stay small? First of all, there's other competitors. Indiegogo is when we talked about. There's other crowdfunding platforms, and then there's now crowdfunding company that looks to allow people to invest venture money, almost like venture money, but much smaller sums in new companies. So, and that's, I guess, as a result of this new law, right? But you said you don't want to do those things. Well, talk about why about staying small, and then talk about there's going to be competitors who may not want to stay small.
Well, staying small is just, you know, it's really exciting to do this, but this is also our life. You know, this is my life that I'm living, and it's pretty ridiculous, the demands that it has. But, you know, I think that it's a lot more fun. You know, I think about the size of these other companies where you have thousands of employees, and that sounds like hell. I mean, it just sounds terrible.
Well, and I asked you the other day when we talked about making money, and you said,
yeah, we don't care about money.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that when you're in the black, obviously. You know, if we didn't have a business model or whatever, then
well, how much money did you raise to start the company?
Very little, very little.
Well, Chris Sacco was here the other day. He's got like $2 billion.
And we took a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of Chris's
Under
money.
$1 million?
Yes.
Under $1 million?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was, you know, it was just, we're lucky in that we actually deal with money, and there are very few websites that do that, so it makes it a lot easier to actually have revenue. But, you know, there's a tendency, there's an expectation for companies to try to maximize and get as big as you can and grab as much, you know, mind share and land as you can, and I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that that's wrong.
Are you all of the co-founders? You're all in lockstep agreement on that?
Yeah.
About being small.
I think the important thing is to do something that you love
money?
and do it really, really well. And you know, maximizing just forces you to make bad choices. It forces you to compromise your values, to compromise your users, and ultimately, I think it kills you. You know, we really are thinking about how do you build something that lasts forever. And I've been an entrepreneur for 3.5 years. I've never done anything like this before, so I don't know at all. But we're trying to figure out a different model. So a model that allows you to stay independent and do what you want and make decisions based on your own values and not anyone else's.